The Deer Who Played Dead. In the lush green forests of ancient India, there lived a great and wise stag who was known throughout the land for his knowledge of survival. He was the uncle of the herd, and every deer respected his wisdom. One morning, his sister, a gentle doe, came to him with her young son by her side. "Dear brother," she said, "please teach my son the deer's ruses, the tricks that will keep him safe from hunters and snares. He is eager to learn and will not disappoint you." And so the lessons began. In a quiet forest clearing, the uncle taught his nephew the 6 tricks that every deer must know to survive. "First," said the uncle, "you must learn to lie perfectly still on your left side, on your right side, and on your back, as if you were truly dead." The young deer practiced each posture carefully. "Next, paw the ground with all 8 hoofs to scatter earth around you. Then hold your breath and breathe only through one nostril, so no hunter can see you breathing." Day after day, the young nephew arrived at the clearing at exactly the right time, never once missing a lesson. While other young deer played and wandered, he practiced with great dedication, lying rigid as stone, lolling his tongue, rolling his eyes, and puffing up his body until he looked like a deer that had been dead for days. The uncle watched with deep satisfaction. "Your son has mastered all 6 tricks," he told his sister proudly. "He is the most diligent student I have ever taught." But one fateful morning, while the young nephew was roaming through the forest on his own, his leg caught in a hunter's snare hidden beneath the fallen leaves. The rope pulled tight around his ankle, and he could not break free. When his mother heard the news, she panicked and raced through the forest to find her brother. "Brother, my son is caught in a hunter's trap," she cried, trembling with fear. "The hunter will come and kill him. What shall we do?" The wise uncle looked at his frightened sister with calm, steady eyes. "Do not be afraid," he said gently. "In 3 postures your son is versed. 6 tricks he knows by heart. He has been faithful in every lesson and diligent in every practice. Trust in his training, he will know exactly what to do." The mother's trembling slowly eased as her brother's calm confidence washed over her. She looked at him with hope in her tearful eyes and whispered, "You truly believe he will survive?" Back in the forest, the trapped nephew put every lesson into action. He lay perfectly rigid on his side, not a single muscle twitching. He pawed the ground with all 8 hoofs, scattering dirt and leaves over himself. Then he lolled his tongue out the side of his mouth, let drool drip from his jaw, rolled his eyes back until only the whites showed, and swelled up his entire body with one enormous breath until he looked bloated and rotten. He breathed only through one nostril, so faintly that not even a feather would have stirred. Flies buzzed around him. Crows landed nearby, cawing. He looked exactly like a deer that had been dead and decomposing for days. The hunter came trudging through the forest to check his snare. When he saw the deer lying in the trap, he wrinkled his nose at the terrible smell and the sight of the bloated, drooling creature covered in flies. "Bah! This one has been dead too long," the hunter muttered in disgust. "The meat is rotten and the hide is ruined. What a waste of a good snare." He bent down and loosened the rope from around the deer's leg, tossing it aside. The very instant the snare fell free, the dead deer sprang to life. In one explosive leap, the nephew bounded away through the forest like lightning, leaving the stunned hunter gaping in disbelief. The nephew raced home through the forest and burst into the clearing where his mother and uncle waited. His mother nuzzled him with tears of joy, and the wise uncle looked upon him with deep pride. "You see, sister," the uncle said, turning to the gathered herd. "Those who are diligent in learning and faithful in practice will be saved when danger comes. My nephew never missed a lesson, never cut short a practice. And because of that, he stands here alive today." The young deer bowed his head gratefully to his uncle, knowing that every early morning, every patient repetition, had saved his life. Moral: those who are diligent in learning and faithful in practice will be saved when danger comes. The Foolish Apprentice. In the ancient city of Benares, there was a famous little shop that sold the most delicious sherbet drinks in all the land. People came from far and wide to taste the sweet, refreshing fruit drinks made by the shop's owner, a jolly man named Master Ganesh. His secret recipes had been passed down for generations, and no one could resist his wonderful creations. Working in the shop was a young apprentice named Nanda. He was eager and hardworking, always watching Master Ganesh with wide, curious eyes. Every day, he marveled at how the master mixed fresh mangoes, rose water, and secret spices to create his famous drinks. One day, Nanda thought to himself, I will be just as skilled as Master Ganesh. One busy morning, Master Ganesh had to visit the marketplace to buy fresh fruits. Nanda, he said with a warm smile, watch the shop and serve the customers while I am away. Just pour the sherbet from the big pot. Do not change anything. Nanda nodded eagerly, his chest swelling with pride at being trusted with such an important job. As Nanda served the drinks, he noticed something curious. Several customers reached for the small dish of salt on the counter and added a tiny pinch to their sherbet before drinking. How interesting, thought Nanda, his eyes growing wide. They are adding salt. That must be the secret ingredient that makes it even better. If a tiny pinch is good, imagine how wonderful a whole bag would be. Without thinking twice, Nanda grabbed a large bag of salt from the storage shelf and poured the entire contents into the big sherbet pot. He stirred it vigorously with a wooden ladle, watching the salt dissolve into the beautiful pink drink. He smiled proudly to himself, imagining how pleased Master Ganesh would be with his clever discovery. When the next customer took a sip of Nanda's improved sherbet, his eyes bulged with shock. He spat it out immediately, sputtering and coughing. What is this? It tastes like seawater, he cried. One by one, customer after customer tasted the drink and reacted the same way, making terrible faces and spitting the salty sherbet onto the ground. The whole shop erupted in chaos. The angry customers stormed out of the shop, vowing never to return. Word spread quickly through the marketplace that the sherbet shop's drinks were ruined. Within minutes, the once bustling shop was completely empty. Poor Nanda stood alone behind the counter, confused and frightened. He could not understand what had gone wrong with his brilliant idea. When Master Ganesh returned and found his shop empty and his precious sherbet ruined, he was heartbroken. The wise treasurer of Benares, who had heard the commotion, came to the shop and smiled gently at the tearful boy. Young Nanda, said the treasurer kindly, the customers added a pinch of salt to suit their own taste. That did not mean the sherbet needed salt. Remember this well, good intentions without knowledge can do more harm than good. Always learn before you try to improve what you do not yet understand. Moral: good intentions without knowledge can cause more harm than good. The Headman and the Robbers. Long ago, in a peaceful border village near a great forest in ancient India, there lived many happy families. They grew rice in the lush green fields, tended their cattle by the river, and celebrated together at festivals. Among the visitors was a kind traveling merchant, a wise and observant man who traded goods from village to village. The village had a headman named Dushta, appointed by the great king himself to protect the people and collect the royal taxes. Everyone trusted him, for he wore fine clothes and spoke sweetly to all. But behind his warm smile, Dushta hid a greedy heart. He always wanted more gold, more power, and more riches for himself. One dark night, Dushta crept deep into the forest to meet with a gang of fierce robbers. By the flickering light of a hidden campfire, he whispered his treacherous plan to their chief. Tomorrow, I will march all the village men deep into the jungle on a false errand. While they are gone, you can take everything, the cattle, the grain, the gold. We will share the loot equally between us. The next morning, Dushta strode into the village square and announced loudly, the king needs every able man to clear a new path through the jungle. Follow me at once, it is the king's command. The strong men of the village gathered their tools and obediently followed the headman into the thick forest, leaving behind only the women, children, and the elderly. As soon as the men disappeared into the jungle, the robbers swooped down upon the defenseless village like hawks upon helpless chicks. They drove away the cattle, emptied the grain stores, and carried off everything of value: pots, cloth, and coins. The women and children cried out in fear, but there was no one strong enough to protect them. The once peaceful village lay in ruins. The wise traveling merchant had stayed behind in the village, sensing that something was not right. From his window, he watched the robbers carefully and noticed they came from exactly the direction that Dushta had said was safe. He also saw how they seemed to know precisely where the grain and gold were kept. This was no accident, the merchant thought. The headman himself planned this terrible crime. That evening, Dushta marched back into the ruined village, beating a loud drum proudly as if returning from a great victory. He pretended to be shocked at the destruction all around him. "What happened here?" he cried with false tears. But the wise merchant stepped forward boldly and spoke for all to hear. "A son who lets his own mother be robbed, then returns beating drums and shedding false tears, is no son at all, he is already dead in his heart." The merchant's words spread from village to village, and soon the truth reached the ears of the king. The furious king summoned Dushta to the royal court and found him guilty of the worst betrayal, turning against the very people he was sworn to protect. Dushta was stripped of his power and punished. A new, honest headman was appointed, and the king sent help to rebuild the village. And the wise merchant continued on his way, knowing that truth and justice will always prevail over greed and deception. Moral: a leader who betrays the trust of the people is no leader at all.